Hey, I'm trying to live until I die. Come connect, you know it's a lewd state of mind. Yeah, yeah, talking traveling. If you wanna fly, fitness and finance, living a better life, keep it raw, no filter, living with no limit. Thank you for tuning in. Come on, let's get it.
And we're back.
We are.
That was a good first hour. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of that. I'm excited about this next part.
Yes.
But first, before we go anywhere else, we've got to thank our sponsors, Joe and Rob from Chapel Street Cellars, suppliers of Buckfast.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Joe and Rob. Cheers.
Love you guys. Thank you very much. Thanks to Buckfast.
Yum.
You would have grown up on Buckfast being from the UK, wouldn't you?
No.
No.
Is it not more of a Scottish thing? I just
Might
made
be.
that up.
Irish. Who knows?
Yeah, England would have been like Stella.
I know that Joe and Rob sell a lot to expats, like geezers and Scots and Irish.
Yeah.
Who else have we got from that part?
Welsh,
Welsh, yep.
maybe.
Yep.
Could have just. It may just maybe not been a Manchester thing, Buckfast, but.
Yeah. You're probably too upper class for Buckfast.
Darling, yes. I just had a sherry and port. Sherry's actually quite nice.
I
Got
love
to that age now where we love sherry.
I love a good fortified.
Yes.
Love it. Good sticky.
There's a really nice one. I won't name names, but in the Healesville,
Yep.
there's a little winery there, and they import one from Spain. It's really good.
You can name them if you want to.
I might have also forgotten the name, so that's why I just said I'm not going to name them.
I do that as well too. I'm terrible like that.
Oh, I'm terrible with names. The amount of times where I've gone into the waiting room and gone, "Oh, little, you."
Yeah, hey you.
I know your face,
Mate.
Yeah, the whole
buddy,
session.
Little buddy.
Come on, you. Yep.
Hey, we talked previously about mental illness, mental health.
Mental health, yes.
Obviously, our listeners will know I fall into one box or one classification, and they call it bipolar. Now, you're in the same boat. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You've just recently, and this is all fresh too, so I'm going to tiptoe quietly through the tulips. Okay. I'm going to nurse you through.
Right.
You've just been diagnosed recently with ADHD.
Yes. Formally diagnosed, I think, May. So
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It was previously known as ADA.
So yeah, I think there's been an ADD as well, attention deficit disorder.
You're right. I can't read my own writing. It is ADD.
Got you back. Don't worry.
Yes, thank you.
I was like,
appreciate it. I appreciate
what's
it.
ADA? Attention deficit. Awesomeness.
Awesome. Oh, exactly. I reckon the A is for awesome.
So there was like ADD, ADHD, and then they've kind of now gotten rid of the ADD as a diagnosis, and you have ADHD, but you can have one of three types.
Yeah, because you were explaining that to me earlier. Please explain exactly what you mean about one of three types.
So when you're diagnosed, they will ask you lots of questions about your childhood, about your current life, and then you will be diagnosed as either hyperactive ADHD, inattentive ADHD, or combined, which means you have both inattentive and hyperactive.
Yeah, of all the traits.
Yes.
Yep. Which one are you?
I'm inattentive, which means I struggle with things like procrastination. So there'll be a task that is the simplest of tasks to do, but because it doesn't give me any glow, doesn't give me any fizz, doesn't give me dopamine, essentially, I will put that off. I will do things like I forget what people are talking about. Mid-conversation, I will zone out and start thinking about something else and forget what that person said.
You've done pretty well today then, haven't you?
Yes, I'm going to go home and be absolutely knackered.
You're going to be shattered.
I'm shattered. For me, time blindness is a thing. And by time blindness, I will sit down on the sofa. Sitting on the sofa, if you have ADHD, it's the worst, because you sit on that sofa, you will not leave that sofa for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
So time blindness, I'm just going to sit down on my phone, swipe for 5 minutes, and then I'll go unload the washing machine. 90 minutes can go by in what feels like the blink of an eye.
How does that work now that you're a mum?
Yeah, it was in fact, it's interesting you say that, because the whole reason I went to pursue a diagnosis was because things changed for me when I became a mother.
And you were saying that that's pretty common for females.
Yeah,
when they have their first child.
When I did my research into it, and I was thinking, I feel like what I'm experiencing isn't, and again, in inverted commas, normal. Inverted commas, that's not the right thing, is it? That's not the right punctuation. Quotation marks. Inverted commas would be like that, wouldn't it?
That's weird.
Inverted commas.
Please don't do that again. I'm just going to guard my nipples.
Commas.
Yeah.
Tickles. I felt as though the space in my brain that I had, so I'm going to go a bit technical, but there's the part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex.
Good. We all need to learn this.
Which is responsible for something called executive functioning. And your executive functioning looks at things like planning. So, for example, today you knew we were going to have this podcast, so there were things that you knew you had to do to prepare for the podcast.
Correct.
Organising, so being able to know what things you had to bring. So the planning leads into the organising. Being able to problem solve. All of these things, remembering. So, I've agreed to do this thing, I'm going to remember to do it. That's all to do with that executive functioning. And this is where, when you have ADHD, it really impacts this area of the brain. And because a lot of this area of the brain is also very reliant on dopamine, of which people with ADHD, I think, I'm going to have a drink before I say this. I've done a bit of research into it, and I don't think it's necessarily a lack of dopamine. I think what people who have ADHD have is, in our brain we have neurons, and neurons are things that carry messages around the body.
Yep.
And we have neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters are the things that the neurons go into, and then the neurotransmitters tell those neurons where to go. I think they've done some studies, and in people who have ADHD, we potentially have too many neurotransmitters. So when the dopamine comes in, it goes very quick. So we might have the same amount of dopamine, but it gets released far too quick, so we don't feel the benefits from it.
Okay, well, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and so that's why stimulants, and there is medication that exists for ADHD.
Well, I was going to say to you,
yes,
you're diagnosed,
yes,
and then you're treated,
yes,
and part of that treatment is medication.
Yes, yeah.
And that medication is a stimulant.
Yes.
In most cases, it's got so it's on. Would you say Dex?
So I'm on. I think it's pronounced dexamphetamine.
Dextroamphetamine.
Yeah, as I was saying before, people just refer to it as Dex because
Dex.
it's less syllables.
It's a lot easier to say.
Yeah, it's like, say that 3 times in a mirror. Dexamphetamine, dexamphetamine. Something bad will happen. This is where I think the hyperactivity slightly comes in, because I'm
beginning to see it now.
Yeah, could also just be the mimosa. And
yes,
the
of course.
fast.
It's good. It's good mimosa.
But the stimulants are there to kind of stimulate, and I suppose give me more of that chemical that I need in my brain in order to have that get up and go, in order to be more attentive. And I started to trial this medication 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks, 6 weeks ago.
Yes, it's all very fresh, yeah. Yep.
Still completely fresh. And initially I noticed a change, and it's little things. And if you don't have ADHD, you would think these things were weird not to do. But for example, I will leave lights on in the house. I will go into the kitchen and open a cupboard door, take out a cup, and then leave the door open.
Wow, you'd be annoying to live with, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm like a ghost, essentially. Like that scene in Sixth Sense where he walks in, all the cupboard
Yeah.
doors are open. He's not a ghost. His mum just has ADHD. And little things like that, or you would see something on the floor.
Well, can I just? Are you consciously aware that you're doing this?
No.
So it's just a natural.
Yeah.
Just it doesn't feel weird or.
No. So that didn't, and you know, sometimes I might think, oh, I might see that thing on the floor, like a sock, a toddler sock.
Yeah.
And I just walk past it. Or if I'm hoovering. Sorry, I thought you were pointing at yourself. I thought you were like, I do that. No. I thought we were going to have a beautiful bonding moment about you walking past socks.
We can. I can quite easily walk past a sock, but the thing is...
So yeah, walking past things like if you're hoovering and there's a Duplo on the floor, rather than pick up the Duplo, you hoover around it.
Oh.
And I didn't realise that all these things are actually quite common for people who do have ADHD. And since I've taken the medication, I now have a thought process where I go, that's literally going to take me a fucking second to pick up. Just pick it up. Shut the door.
So it gets rid of that procrastination.
It gets rid of
the
that
equation.
Yeah, I sit down on the sofa and I don't have this huge internal debate about, I know I've got to go and write that report. It's going to take me age. And then by the time I've had this internal debate, 2 hours have gone by because I've got time blindness. Whereas taking the medication, it's kind of helped me. I sit on the sofa, but I go, the time has kind of slowed down a little bit. I don't feel like I've lost time. So little things like that, I've noticed it helps me with. It's not a cure. It's not meant to.
Well, there is no cure.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, some people, I'm going to get a diagnosis and I'm going to take medication and my life's going to be perfect.
Nope.
It's not supposed to do that. The only thing downside I've noticed is when I had started to then up the dosage, it was a little bit too much for me.
Explain how.
It didn't feel healthy. The only way I can describe it is it felt like I had a big, like someone was putting like a heavy bag on my chest. I felt like I was having a little bit like palpitations.
Yeah.
It just, and I think you should always listen to your body. It's something that, especially when it's to do with your heart or anything like that, you shouldn't push through it. So if you do trial medication because, you know, you've been given a diagnosis by a psychiatrist, don't push through. If something's not right, go back to your psychiatrist and talk to them about the levels that you're on and see if you're going to try a different kind of medication. Because as you know, the first medication you try for whatever you've got, it's not one size fits all.
No, exactly. And that's the trouble with a lot of patients is they struggle to find their equilibrium. You know?
Yes.
And as you say, even with dosages,
Yeah.
What in my research, what I didn't understand was that with a diagnosis of ADHD, which is hyperactivity, and as you say, everything's sometimes going really fast, or you can't put things together, but you're getting prescribed a stimulant, a methamphetamine, you know, which is what people take when they go to raves.
Oh my! So when I got given this,
You went
I
straight to a
got
rave?
a letter. It's so funny. I got a letter and you have to carry it with you in your bag because if you do like a drugs test at the side of the road, it can show up. You can be flagged for drugs. And I was like, what a disappointing episode that would be of those, you know, road, what's that program called? Traffic cops.
Was it Motorway Patrol?
Yeah, I just get pulled over.
Oh, boo! Yes.
Oh, look at this speech therapist. She's a secret ice fiend. And actually, it's just ADHD prescribed medication.
So we're talking about the tongue swabs that they do for drug testing, which is obviously that's what it's there for, methamphetamines, for people that are doing ice for breakfast and then going out for a joyride.
There are people that don't get me started on
No.
it. I can't not abide drink and drug drivers. I think it's one of the most selfish things you could possibly do.
It is.
That's a whole other podcast.
It is.
But interestingly, a lot of people who have had undiagnosed ADHD and they go into, you know, adulthood end up becoming or have been alcoholics or drug addicts, because if you have a lack of dopamine and you are constantly searching for that.
That's what you're doing. You're chasing it. You're chasing.
Yeah, so that's why actually, if one of the questions she asked me was, my GP's been my GP for a long time, but do you have a history of addiction? Because you can't be given a stimulant like Ritalin or dexamphetamine if you've got a history of addiction, because it does give you a tiny, it's supposed to boost you, it's supposed to make you not like it's not high dosages, but for example, if I was going to go on holiday and I was going to run out of my medication before I needed it, if I went to the pharmacy, they would have to ring my GP to be like, Jess has come in 5 days early to get her medication this month, because it is. And that freaked me the hell out when I was like, oh my God, what if I am a drug addict? I just don't realize it yet.
Well, see, that's the thing, is like you're talking about past history, and you can now look back and reflect on your upbringing.
Yes.
And as you say, a lot of people that have gone through life have been undiagnosed and have these compulsive habits, and they have these addictions to substances or alcohol. They're essentially masking their diagnoses or undiagnoses, like a high functioning alcoholic. And it's about cause and effect. I look back through my journey, and I can completely map out everything that's happened and understand why it happened in reflection, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with it since I was 20 years old, so I've had a consciousness about it. Luckily for me, the medication that I'm on is not the same as what you're prescribed. It's not a stimulant. It's more of a mood enhancer. But once again, as you say, if you wanted to go overseas for 3 months, you're going to have to get a letter from your GP to get 3 months supplies. Well, what are you going to do with that 3 months? Thinking that you're going to break it down in pills and sell it at next weekend's rave.
I would be the worst drug dealer. I am the most suspicious. I would just be so dodgy looking.
You'd be sweating.
I'd be there wearing a balaclava in the corner, and they'd be like, she's there. I just wouldn't know what to do. I might as well hold up a sign.
Because one of the most commonly prescribed ADHD drugs is Ritalin.
Yes.
That's correct. That's what people know.
Yep.
They know that, and as you say, it's a stimulant.
Yeah. Yeah. And children. I think children now have to be. Someone's probably going to correct me if this is wrong. I think it's about 6 or 7 before someone will officially diagnose a child as having ADHD, because they want them to be old enough that they can give them medication. And is that the only solution to the problem? No, I completely do not think it's the only solution. But I think it's sometimes worth trialing. And I think people are afraid of medication, especially in children, because of what they have seen in TV and news and what they've read. There are children out there who are completely over-medicated, and it takes away who they are. They just become these zombie children. And I think even with adults, if you take too much of a medication, you can also, change who you are as a person. And I love so many of my kids that have ADHD. They're so much fun, and they just have this joy that
these are
is
kids
contagious.
that aren't medicated, you say?
No, but these are some of mine that are medicated, but over here in Australia, I think they're very conservative with how much they medicate kids and adults actually, which I'm pleased about. But I don't have an issue with medication. It's the same as if you had arthritis, you would take something to help with that.
Yeah.
If you had, if you have something physical or something that isn't mental, and there was a tablet you could take for it, you would do. But I think there's still this stigma,
Definitely stigma.
With mental health and medications, and your child's medicated. if a child's medicated, it's not a reflection on your parenting. It's not a reflection on the child. It's to do with a chemical imbalance in their brain that they can't help, that you can't help. And if by trialing them, it's a trial, if it doesn't work for them, you don't have to keep them on it. It doesn't, I don't see that there's a problem in that if that helps them to learn and to feel less anxious throughout the day.
Well, question for you. You're a mum.
Yes.
Your son
Yes.
has got a 30 to 50% chance of having ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that concerns you?
No, not in the slightest. It concerns me that he would go through life not in the correct environment. So, if he would have been born 30, 40 years ago, that would concern me. But I think there are so many people out there that have ADHD, that have undiagnosed ADHD, that do fabulous things with their lives. And like we go back to that, what is normal? Like maybe it's the field that I work in, maybe it's the friends that I have, but I've yet to come across one human that doesn't have or hasn't experienced some form of mental health or physical health or something where they haven't had support for. And so I just think as long as he's a happy, supported version of himself, he can have whatever brain he likes.
Well, he's going to have the support from you and all your experience.
Yeah, God help him.
And wisdom.
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 Wisdom, yeah. A little bit of wisdom. I just want kids to be happy. I just want them to feel safe and happy and to be supported to be the best version of themselves.
I think as a parent, that's all you want. That's all anybody wants.
Yeah.
And as you say, if you're chucking something else in the mix as he gets older, you'd want to hope that, as you say, he's going to get the support and be put in an environment that's going to nurture him.
Yeah.
And as you say, happiness. Ultimately, that's what it's all about.
And look, the guy who just won the 100-meter gold in the Olympics, he's got ADHD. He also had chronic asthma as a child.
I know, that's insane, isn't it?
And so you look at that and you go, so someone that's had chronic asthma as a kid has just won gold in the Olympics.
That is crazy.
Like if you have the right environment and the right attitude towards it, you can put your mind to whatever you want.
And he's probably got a really good team around him as well too.
Exactly.
Because that's the thing with a lot of people in society today. I think they feel like they don't have the support there to deal with what they need to deal with, and they're ignoring it. Sure, probably their friends and family can see it, but it's not been addressed. So, and
it's not a taboo. It's not to talk about your brain being a bit different or having things that aren't quite what is the norm in society. Let's not. It's a word. Let's not. Why are we so worried about saying, I have this, my brain is this?
Well, as we were talking previously about, if you look at the symptoms with ADHD and then you look at the symptoms with bipolar, I'm ticking both boxes. There's some good stuff, some bad stuff. I reckon I've got what I've got today because of a chemical imbalance in my brain. So there's nothing bad. There's no bad stigma about it. Sure, I've labelled it. I've put myself. I've put it out there and I've labelled it so that people can understand.
Yeah.
Because I think these days people need they need to justify and label stuff so that in their own head they can go, all right, I understand that and I get it, and then so I can put that in that box over there.
Yeah.
And then I know where that is, and I can refer back to it if I need to.
Yeah.
It is just a label. It's just a name. It doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change who you are. The beauty about your recent diagnosis is that you can manage your life going forward and make the best of the situations where previously you may have struggled with. So you're going to be rewarding yourself. You're going to be giving yourself more dopamine as you tick off these little boxes, aren't you? And you're going, hey, I'm a better person for this, or I'm doing more for myself, or my family unit's better. This is a personal question, and you don't have to answer it. But was there ever a situation with your husband Tim where you sat down and said, I think there's a problem, or I think there's something that needs to be fixed? Was there a conversation that you've had?
In terms of my diagnosis?
In terms of, okay, well, let's break it down to behaviour.
Yeah.
Okay, as an adult or as a
Yeah.
person, as a partner, was there ever discussions of, hey, this type of behaviour I don't understand, or was it recurring? Was there stuff that frustrated Tim about you?
Yeah, but I don't know if that. I think that might just be a personality thing, the frustrating thing. I think I've like I won't go into it, but I've
No, we
I've
don't-
got
don't-
some childhood trauma stuff too.
Okay.
So I always kind of like I can feel very intently, like I can react to things that maybe Tim wouldn't be bothered by. It would bother me. And I've learned over time that actually my emotions towards things and my feelings are totally valid. Just because it doesn't annoy somebody else and it annoys me, that's okay. What's not okay is if the size of that reaction is huge and it continues and then it impacts Tim.
Your reaction you're talking about.
Yeah. So like, if what happened the other day, he left the heater on overnight, the oil heater and I woke up in the morning and was like, oh my God, that's going to have cost us $20 or whatever. And he was like, we just won't put it on today. And, my emotion in that is to catastrophize and all this stuff.
Is that something that you've done all through your life?
Yeah. And sometimes I had put that down to just, we are formed, our brains are formed as children, what our parents, how we are raised. It's quite terrifying. Now I have a 2-year-old that I'm raising. So there is I do believe that there is a nature element to who we are. So my ADHD was present from birth.
Correct.
But I do also believe there's a nurture aspect, that how we are spoken to, how we are, raised, all of our childhood experiences form us as adults.
You're a product of your environment.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so, for a long time I would put that down to, it's just because of that. But now I think actually a lot of it was probably due to undiagnosed ADHD. But the funny thing is, and I don't think Tim will mind me saying this, when I first came to him about a year and a half ago, I think I have ADHD. He was like, no, you don't. What are you talking about? Because I think a lot of society thinks of ADHD as Jim Carrey, as bouncing off the walls, as being really hyperactive. And since my diagnosis, and I've kind of been like, I've been diagnosed with this type of ADHD, and I go through all of the things, he's like, oh, yeah.
Yep.
And so it's been really educational, I think, for him. And sometimes he goes, maybe I have ADHD. I think I do some of those things. And I'm like, well, you tend to find each other.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's been very interesting. And, we're very open with each other. And I'm very lucky that Tim, we've never really had any big arguments about things I do or haven't done.
Well, you obviously offset each other.
Yeah, we just have, I think, like normal arguments about
Just
farts
normal people.
and
Who left the toilet seat up?
whose turn is it to change the nappy and all that stuff. So,
Hey, just a question on that. As a female,
yeah.
we've got hormones to add into that
Yes.
equation as well too.
Yeah.
Have we seen patterns monthly? Can you look back and you go, well, that was exacerbated because it was that time.
So there's
Of the month?
there's the week before. I won't get into this. Again, not an expert on cycles and periods, but I am kind of an expert because I do have them. The week before you are due to have your period is where your hormones are at their most heightened. And there is actually a thing now that a lot of women feel they have, which is called PMD. I don't know what the full name for that is.
Maddie's
Thank
Googling.
you.
I can see it go straight to the keyboard.
And essentially it's where you're angry and really irritable and sad. And it's actually there's a bit of a correlation between females who have ADHD and their hormones in this week before that part of your cycle. But it's very interesting because it's very common, I think, for women. You just go through this stage of, I'm really irritated. Oh my God, Tim is the worst person in the world. And then the next day you're like, oh, why was I so angry yesterday? And then you go, oh yeah, it's because of this.
Yeah.
So I do think it is it definitely is a thing.
Well, you've got the awareness of it, as you
Yeah.
say, because as you get older, you understand about patterns, you understand
Yeah.
about cycles,
Yeah.
and actions and reactions, and how you
Yeah.
deal with situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and having a supportive partner is great to have a backboard or something to bounce off and say, hey, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I know it happened. I understand it, and in reflection, it shouldn't have happened. But sometimes everybody's got emotions, and everybody's dealing with stuff,
Yeah.
and that's when you've just got to say, "Yep, that's cool.
And
We'll just move on."
I think that's what people need to do a bit more, is that reflection, that self-reflection,
Oh, definitely.
and to own it, and
Yep.
to not be ashamed of saying sorry or saying thank you. You know, and I think in the past, especially maybe in males, I'm not a male, so I can't comment, but I think that reflection on emotions is something that, tears is a bad thing. Men need to suppress their emotions. And I think now that hopefully that we're moving away from that and having my son of my own, I want to make sure that he feels that he can reflect on his emotions and understand his emotions and feel that he can talk about them and feel that that's a very normal, okay thing to do.
Well, as you say, you've got all these stereotypes that people are brought up with, and they don't, or they're never taught to stop and understand and look internally
Yeah.
and go, all right, just process what's going on in your own consciousness,
Yeah.
and look at your actions and your reactions, and then understand how it all works and how it all fits together. Now, I've only just really started learning that in my 40s, and it's a good trait to have, where you can stop at any point and go, I understand why that happened, and I'll just adjust things so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And whether that's just for yourself personally, for your own reflection or well-being or maturity, but it's more so with relationships. There's a lot of stuff going on in relationships
Yeah.
where people aren't talking about stuff.
Yeah.
As you say, but whether it's something's undiagnosed or it's just something that's just not talked about, there's no emotion shown. Guys are the fucking worst. They're terrible. They don't talk about it. They don't share it. I mean, sure, they're going to talk about stuff at the pub with their mates, but they're never going to go deep. They're never going to go as deep as what you need to as a male. And one thing with Lewis, it's just about education and just saying, hey, just reflect, look internally. How are you going to be a better person? How are you going to live a better life?
Yeah.
How are you going to be a better citizen, human being, father, husband?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the main message.
Love it.
Hey, look, I want to talk about. Apparently there's 12 symptoms
Of ADHD.
ADHD, according to this particular website. So I'm just going to run quickly through
Okay,
them.
yep.
And can you just give me a check or a
We did drink each time I
yeah, Jack. We should do this with shots. We should do this
Lord.
with shots. Let's take a break and we'll be back with 12 shots.
We'll be back in 12 hours.
So number one, you got trouble cleaning and organising.
I've already told you.
We've
that.
already said
Yeah.
that. You've
Yeah.
ticked the box on that one. Number two, problems prioritising.
Yes. So, for example, I will start cleaning something, and then I'll start cleaning something, and then I'll see something else, and then I will start doing that. And
So
then
you
I'll
see a
something
shiny light
else.
over here, and it's
And then that's you just need one, like what a cat has, a laser. Shine it on there.
Is that what Tim does to annoy you? He sits on the couch.
Sorry,
with
I've given him an idea now, haven't I? He's just going to direct it to the fridge when he needs a beer. He's just going to shine the laser on the fridge.
You mentioned time blindness.
Yes.
Explain time blindness.
Well, I suppose I can explain it from my perspective.
Of course, that's all I want.
Is time goes very quickly for me. So I will sit down and I will say, I'm just going to do this for 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden it's been 2 hours. I will do things like if I have an appointment at 1 p.m, sometimes I go, I can't possibly do anything else with my day because I've got an appointment at 1 p.m.
Ah. Does that mean you specifically not put as many appointments in your day to
So-
mitigate that?
No, so when I'm working, I have, everyone has a structured timetable. And because in my head I'm working, I'm like, okay, that's what I do. But say it's a Saturday and I have a personal appointment at 1 p.m, I would find it hard to commit to going for like brunch in the morning because my brain would be like, the timings, I don't know how I would work with the timings of that.
So technically what you're saying, what I'm hearing, is that during business hours, during your business, during the business week, you can quite easily organise yourself to have a normal functioning day that is cohesive and you're ticking every box. But when it comes to the weekend or after hours, it's like you're saying to me that like there's two Jesses. There's the business Jess, and then there's the.
Well, it also comes with the masking a little bit. So in order, to function in the day, I have to really think about timings. I'm always late in the mornings. Always late in the mornings.
So don't make the first appointment of the day with you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Sorry, 9. So like, for example, I will do my first one at 9:15 because I know that there's no way I'm going to get there for 9. Even if I was to get up at 7:30, give myself 90 minutes, there would still be, because of the time blindness, I still in my head think I have more time than I do. And I'll go, oh, I've got 20 minutes, it's fine. And then all of a sudden there's 2 minutes. And now I've got to get a toddler who also wants to do everything himself in the car. And so the medication has helped with that because it's for whatever it's doing in there.
Yeah.
But it's still, I'm still always late, even with the medication.
Do you consciously see that as a struggle? Are you going, this, I'm struggling? Is that emotion? Is that an emotion that you use in that instance?
Sometimes, no, I've tried to just go, look, this is just who I am. I'm never more than, say, like 10, 15 minutes late. So I'm like, okay, it's not... And if I know I'm going to be a ridiculous amount of time, I always make sure I let somebody know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's common.
Can't stand it when people just turn up and don't let you know they're going to be half an hour late.
Yep.
But yeah, some of these things, I have accepted that that's just who I am. And I don't want to... It's not worth me stressing myself out to get somewhere. I'd rather be 10 minutes late.
You're not going to beat yourself up. No.
I used to, and now I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that comes with experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think since having my diagnosis, I'm just like, it's not a choice. I'm not making a choice to be late. I'm really trying my best.
Yep.
And this is my best.
That's all you can do. Yeah. That's all you can do. Number 4 is lack of focus. We've definitely touched on that. This one probably doesn't apply to you. This is hyperfocus. Number 5.
So hyperfocus.
It means when you're just intensely into a task.
Yeah. Sometimes if you have a task that gives you a huge amount of dopamine.
Can you describe one? What would one be?
For me, I could spend a lot of time. Like, I love true crime, so I could go in a deep dive.
Oh, I love to. Oh, mate, we're on the same page. Mate, I didn't mean to call you mate. Sorry.
They call me. That's fine. You can call me mate. It's all.
Mate.
I worked in a prison for 12 months, so mate would be a compliment.
We're going to come back to that too. I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
You sure you worked in it?
Yeah. Sometimes I have said, I was in a prison for 12 months, and I've definitely had a few kids look at me like, fucking Jesus Christ.
Selling drugs on the corner.
And then there's something like, yes, Jess, no, Jess, 3 bags full, Jess. But yeah, so sometimes if I'm going to write a report, what I do is I set myself a timer on my phone and I go, I'm going to do this for 40 minutes.
Yep.
And when I get into it, I can smash out that report, which might normally take someone 3 hours to do. I could do that in 40 minutes because I'm so in the zone with it. And that's one of the things that a lot of people who have ADHD are quite good at doing. You might hear about people who have assignments, like school assignments or uni projects, and they leave it to the last minute because they need to feel that pressure to get something done.
Yeah, that's what they like.
And so they can write 12,000 words in 6 hours because they suddenly have this pressure that they've got to get it done. They have the dopamine of, shit, I've got to do it. And so then they just, smoke's coming off the keyboard and they do it. And that's what it's called, hyperfocus. But I feel like that would cause me so much stress personally that I don't necessarily think I always do hyperfocus. But I know a lot of people do that.
And you're talking about people doing assignments and stuff. I think Ritalin is one of the main drugs that college students use in the States.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, I've heard that.
I mean, I'm sure Maddie can search that up, but and it's readily available apparently. Don't quote me.
you got your mum's in the corner in the balaclavas dealing it to all the uniform. Here you go. You can have 2 Ritalin tablets.
Yeah, let's just have a quick search of that because I don't want to go off half cocked here, but I've seen a couple of documentaries with kids in that have been addicted to Ritalin. Just so they can get their studies done. But when they do use it, they're just hyper-focused and achieve everything they need to.
Yeah, I imagine that must be awful. Though. Like, if you don't need a stimulant.
Oh, listen to this. So over 16% of college students have taken methamphetamines, such as Ritalin or for recreational purposes. The United States produces and consumes approximately 85% of the world's supply of Ritalin. Wow. Approximately 5.9 million children have been diagnosed with ADHD, for which the leading treatment is Ritalin.
And this is where America, again, whole of the podcast. A lot of those documentaries that I've seen where kids are over medicated have all been American documentaries.
Yeah.
And that's why medication gets a very bad name, because they're given such high doses and there's no trial. It's just, here you go.
Well, see, the thing is, with stimulants like that, they're addictive. And if you're overprescribing, it can't end well. I mean, it's the same with any addiction, whether it's cigarettes, alcohol, cocaine, weed, sometimes it's always going to end in tears.
Yep.
Number 6 is difficulty maintaining the schedule. Well, we've just touched on that. You're actually doing quite well.
Yeah, I think because, I love what I do. Like I said right at the start of the podcast.
That's where the dopamine's coming from. Yep.
I love what I do. So I get a buzz out of seeing all my different kids and my different people in the week. They keep me going. And, I think that's one of the things I'm not too bad at. But I'm lucky I have a job that I actually have to.
You are lucky.
I have to do that, so yeah.
Number 7, starting projects without completing them.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward. Restlessness, number 8, restlessness or excessive activity. We discussed that. That's not your jam.
No, this was the one thing when I had my assessment with the psychiatrist, and he was like, do you feel like you have to be active all the time? I was like, no, I'm happy sitting on the sofa watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy for 9 hours.
So you realise I'm from the UK. That's our national pastime.
We love the sofa.
Yeah.
That's why Gogglebox is my favourite TV show. I swear to God, when I was in labour, I said to Tim, I want to watch Gogglebox. Can you find Gogglebox on YouTube
that's
for
weird.
me?
Yeah, Gogglebox and Gherkins.
Oh no, not gherkins.
You didn't do the Gherkins?
No, I had no crave. I was very boring in my pregnancy. The only thing I craved was alcohol, but that's because I couldn't have it.
Don't we all?
So it's like alcohol and blue cheese.
All right, I want you to think back into your childhood, into the past. Number 9 is impulsive behaviour.
Oh, see, I can't remember impulsive behaviour as a child. I think I've looked into this, and as a child, I think I masked a lot. I think I was a people pleaser. I think I probably was someone that still spoke a lot, like I do now. And I think I probably went off on a tangent like I do now. And I think that probably annoyed people. But I don't think I necessarily did anything overly impulsive.
What about purchasing stuff? What about, because the one thing with bipolar is that we're known for making big purchases without going through the process of deciding whether it's a good idea or not.
Oh, nah, I've never done anything big. Like every now and again, I think when I go shop. I don't shop a lot, but when I then do go,
You just go bunter.
yeah. So like the other day, you know, there was loads of things on Kmart that I wanted that I thought that's good therapy toy. That's a good therapy toy. And I just,
Well, there you go. There you've just ticked number 9. That's exactly it.
yeah. And
Doesn't
then
matter
it gives you a dopamine hit. But I feel lucky that I've never really regretted a purchase and then had to take it back.
Yeah, you haven't turned up in the driveway with a new Porsche. Tim, guess what?
Tim really be great.
Look at our new car.
Yeah.
Number 10. Mood swings.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's anything out of the norm.
Just the normal stuff.
Like I do have mood swings, but I feel like a lot of that can be a reflection of the environment of the day I've had. Like if I've had loads of clients that day and I'm tired, or I don't think there's ever a time where I've gone, I have no fucking idea why I was in that mood.
Do you consciously unload?
Yeah, I'll tell Tim about stuff. I don't think he listens half the time, but that's probably a good thing.
Guys don't.
And I think I also repeat myself as well. I think I'm say the same thing. He's like, you've already told me this. I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you again.
That's their alcohol abuse. That's what that's doing. You're conscious about your changes in mood.
Yeah, I'm always like, there'll be a point where I go, I'll have a mood change, and then pretty quickly I'll be like, why am I in this
Yeah.
anxious mood? Why am I frustrated? And I can usually explain it. But yeah, I think before I got my diagnosis, when Seb, I can say Seb.
Of course you can. With the little man.
Yes, the little man. It's just easier to say. Seb was young, and everything just felt I was so upset a lot of the time because I just couldn't get my head around, going back to work and managing therapists, and then trying to be in charge of Seb and the mental load of, it's not just keeping him alive. It's what clothes does he need? When does he need new nappies? When are his injections? What weight should he be at this age? What milestone should he be doing now? It's so many things that you are consciously trying to balance, and then going back to work and then trying to keep a social life and trying to keep a relationship. But that I've never felt so overwhelmed as I did that first 12 months.
Not taking anything away from you and your own situation. I think that's a generalisation of new mothers. Would you agree?
The mental load
Yep.
of mothers it's so hard. And
That's why you need a good partner.
That's why you need a partner who also listens to when you say, because, dads do a phenomenal job.
Yeah, they don't get a lot of credit.
No,
not
they
in that
do.
first. Not in that first. See, my experience was that a lot of that responsibility was taken away from me, and I felt like just a passenger. But all you got to do is just be there and support. And in hindsight, there was probably a lot of mistakes that I made as a dad, with supporting with Mav's mum. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and if you don't have family, in close proximity,
It still is just the two of us, and I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we've done what we've done, just the two of us, really. But I was like, we're going back to the UK. We're going back. There's no way I'm having another kid over here. We're going back. And then as soon as I think I started to work for myself, so I removed a lot of the environmental stress from my previous job. Nothing on my previous job. I wasn't the same person. Didn't have the same brain capacity to do it anymore. And so working for myself was a huge help. And then just looking into the ADHD thing and going, what I'm experiencing is just there's so many people that have that. And looking back on my childhood, and it was very, it was good to know what I'm experiencing is very common.
Exactly. And we're just stating and claiming a bit of a disclaimer right now. We aren't experts.
No.
No, we're not giving advice on how you should handle your own situation. This is purely your journey.
Yes.
But saying that, if there's anybody listening to this that is starting to think about their own situation, or maybe somebody that they know, seek medical advice. It is very easy to go to your GP.
Yeah, absolutely.
And say, hey, how do we just start the process of maybe looking down this path, whether it's ADHD or something else, even mild depression, you know?
Yeah,
Even
postnatal
something
depression.
Yeah, well, a big postnatal depression is a big one, you know, for all those mothers and that. And
Dads can get postnatal depression too.
they
as
can.
Well.
Yep. They do have alcohol to fix that, and it worked pretty good for me. But as I said, no, jokes aside, if anybody's listening, hey, just start the conversation.
Yeah.
Start the conversation. Make an appointment with your GP, or maybe talk to friends and family. Talking about friends and family, we touched on earlier about the not the struggle, but how hard it is to make friends as adults.
Yes.
Have you got a good group of friends that you would classify as family around you now after 6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. We're
And
very...
this is home for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would never... I think because I've moved around so much, I would say currently this is home. I don't have any plans in the near future at all to move. I think here is a phenomenal place to have children. So, you know, I'm happy to stay here, and I've got lots of friends, lots of girlfriends as well now are having their own bubs. And so it's nice to kind of share my knowledge and my experience, and that's filling my bucket.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's good to hear.
Yeah, and also going back to like my own diagnosis of ADHD, when I spoke to a couple of friends and then I did like a social media post a few weeks ago, I had so many people comment being like, I feel the same. I'm on a pathway of getting a diagnosis, and you talking about this has made me think about it. And I just hope that more people feel that it's okay to talk about, and to talk about things that are hard. We don't have to, as mothers, pretend that it's that Instagram thing, isn't it? Oh, look, my baby does this, my baby does that, my baby's so cute. I'm sure they are, but I'm sure there's also a lot of things out there that are really difficult, and you don't have to pretend that motherhood and parenthood is this rainbow.
Well, you'll find that a lot of people that post a lot are actually masking the shit that's going on behind the screens. You know? And that's unfortunately that's how society's geared itself to be, which is sad, which is really sad. But as you say, it's about communication, and just start a conversation.
Yeah,
that's all you got to do.
Exactly.
So we're up to number 11, which is trouble coping with stress. Now, stress is itself as a word is completely non-related to other words associated with ADHD or mental illness.
Yeah.
Stress itself is bad. It's a bad thing, and it can be very toxic.
Yeah.
Do you feel over the course of your journey you've had a lot of stress, or there's been instances where you cannot manage stress because of maybe what you know now? Yeah.
I think, you know, I used to become very overwhelmed very quickly. It's interesting. I read something that people who have ADHD, something that shouldn't cause a lot of stress can cause a lot of stress, but then there could be like this mass big thing that neurotypical people would be really stressed about, and people with ADHD are like, oh, it's fine, I know how to deal with this. I think it again comes down to that emotional dysregulation, and that I don't know how to cope with this. I'm not in control of this. I don't know how to fix this. But I think as I've gotten older, wiser and uglier, I have come up with strategies of how to deal with that and recognize that.
Well, you don't know until you know.
Yeah,
do you?
exactly. And look, the brain actually doesn't fully develop until on average 25 years old. So I think, if you're in your early 20s listening to this, cut yourself a bit of slack because you're still really young. And
Yes.
it's okay for you to be a bit overwhelmed at times and then go, fucking hell, why was I so stressed about that the other week? It's all a learning experience. Like, without having those, not even mistakes, just those experiences, you don't learn from them. So,
Well, once again, if we're harking back to the social media and the youth and the stuff that they see and these people that they think they need to look up to or to be or to emulate, it puts a lot of stress on the youth to be a certain way or to act a certain way or to do a certain thing. And it is very, very unhealthy.
and that's what they think. Like this, it goes back to that, what's normal?
Yeah.
In common marks.
Oh, I just felt that.
There you go. It's not. It's photoshopped. It's fake. It's staged, and it's so. Yeah, I just that I could not cope being a teenager with this current social media. Especially being a teenager whose brain is a little bit different, and you don't have a diagnosis, and you're not quite sure if you fit in or you don't fit in, and then you aim to be that, but that's not real. Like it's a whole.
It's a fucking minefield, isn't it?
It's a minefield, and I am glad that I am not in that minefield.
I've got a 15-year-old son that is in the middle of the minefield and he's tiptoeing through it currently. So the poor bastard is all I can say. And all you got to do is, as a dad, is just be there to support them.
Exactly.
Number 12 is increased anger.
I think that goes hand in hand with that emotional dysregulation. Something I find is I have a strong sense of justice. I do not like it when people do things that I do not think is correct. So I get really angry when I am driving and I pull over and someone doesn't put their hand up to say thank you for me. I want to turn my car around and drive at them. Or things like I've gotten into arguments before when I've heard people speak not very kindly to other people and I've gotten involved. Because
So you're injecting yourself into that situation.
Yeah.
When you see an injustice.
And I don't see that this could be essentially a very unsafe situation. I don't see that, all of that goes out of the window.
Well, you got the red mist.
Absolutely. Because I cannot stand it when I don't think that something is unfair.
You've got a good moral compass. There's nothing to be ashamed about there. It's just about, once again, dealing with those emotions and then having the appropriate.
And that's where the impulsivity comes in.
Exactly. I struggled a lot in my youth with anger that was based on frustration for things that weren't done right or similar situations to what you're saying. Or just something that was imperfect.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that for a long, long time before I got to a point where I just let it go. It just rolls off like a water on a duck's back. It's not worth. And that's the thing is, like, once again, you don't know until you know that your own personality and your own traits, there's going to be some stuff there that's socially not acceptable. And then you've got to find out where you fit in and where that stuff, like this, you can say stuff behind closed doors. There's stuff that you don't say in groups of people. There's the stuff that you don't do. I mean, it's all about having those boundaries and understanding where the lines are. With me, it was a lot of things are very black and white. They're cut and dry.
Yeah.
So it's either wrong or it's right.
Yeah.
It is or it isn't. That's why I never have a problem with making decisions. I will back myself up 110%.
Yeah.
That's my personality. And I've always backed myself. And it's as I said, based on what you classify my diagnosis as. There's nothing bad that's come out of that. There have been some situations where you reflect on and you go, well, that's why I understand that now. And that was bad, but I've learnt from that and I'm a better person for it. So never will I go, hey, I don't want to talk about it. It's part of my life. I just want to shut behind closed doors, because that's not an intelligent way to deal with your own human emotions.
Yeah.
Because you've got to interact with people. You've got to be in society. You've got to be a functioning human in society. And whether it's at home with your wife or your family, or whether it's a job situation or it's in a social situation, there's a lot to navigate. There's a lot to navigate and a lot to understand.
Yeah.
And as you say, no situation or nobody is there is no normal. There is no normal handbook.
And we waste so much time in our lives chasing this normal, and it doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree. And we just take a quick break. This podcast is brought to you in part by Buckfast. What is Buckfast, you ask? Well, let me tell you. It's better known as Bucky, and it's an internationally enjoyed, unique tasting tonic wine. It's equally rich in heritage as it is in taste. It packs a punch from 15% alcohol and about the same amount of caffeine as a well-known drink that gives you wings. Buckfast's enjoyment is only rivaled by its versatility from the cooking pot to the wine or cocktail glass. Drink it straight, mix it in a Negroni, or use it as a marinade. Available Australia-wide and distributed by Beeblebrox Beverages. Visit beeblebrox.com.au to find your closest stockist and buckfast.com for cocktail and recipe ideas. I want to thank you for your time today because it's been amazing hearing your own journey. As we've discussed, we're not experts. We're not here to give expert advice, but we are here to educate and facilitate, and hopefully somebody takes some valuable information away from this. So, as I said, thank you very much. I just wanted to bust a couple of myths about ADHD. So what does not cause ADHD is eating too much sugar. No. I like the way you just go, as a mum, no. Watching TV or playing too much video games. No. Poor parenting.
No. None of these things cause ADHD. You're born with it. It's not a cause.
Now, as we've said, there's no fix. There's no cure. But I think to think of it as a disease is probably the wrong way to.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So it's not the connotations of that just do not sum up exactly what exactly is going on.
Yeah.
And we're talking fundamentally about a chemical imbalance.
Yeah, it's very harmful, I think, for society to talk about being neurodivergent, ADHD, autism, whatever, as it being a disease. There being a cure for this. It's that medical model. We're moving to a social model of acceptance and understanding rather than wanting to change everybody that's different.
So the stigma behind it, from our listeners' point of view, should be lessened because of that fact. It's as we said, what is normal anymore? But if you're finding in your life there are these instances where you may be questioning how you're getting these outcomes, by all means, as we said, go see a GP, go talk to people, just start a communication. So another question we've got here is, do people with ADHD need more sleep?
I think that's a individual thing. I'm somebody that likes sleep, but...
Do you get a lot of sleep?
Not as much as I used to do.
Of course.
I remember a stage where sometimes I would have a day at work. This is maybe like 10, 15 years ago. And I would get home at 4 o'clock and I would need a nap.
That's normal.
Is it?
But do you sleep 8 hours at night?
I could if I was not interrupted. But I also have a tendency at night to doom scroll when I should go to sleep.
I think you're in a big group of people that do that, unfortunately.
Which I don't know if this is an ADHD thing. I think it's just a bad habit.
Yep.
But yeah, I think, look, if your brain is different and you're in an environment in the day where you're masking or you're having to work extra hard, your brain is essentially like a muscle, right? So if you've gone on a long run, you're going to be tired. So if you've overworked your brain in the day, you're also going to be tired then. So I would say that maybe they need more sleep.
Well, we've said it here before in the podcast. There's a lot of people out there that just they're not getting enough sleep at night, and it affects their daily life. It affects their health and well-being.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're talking like a minimum of 6 hours, 8 hours optimally.
Yeah.
You know, to keep that body, mind, and soul just cranking as it needs to be, because you take away sleep, and then it's all about a give and take scenario where you've got to make it up somewhere, and if you don't make it up, there's the cause and effect that comes from that. You know? and that could be as basic as being tired and have an argument with your partner, and then these things compound.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got all these things that happen in your life, and if you're not getting enough sleep, that may be the main reason. Health and fitness, definitely. What is mistaken as ADHD? There's a lot of things. We went through the 12 list of the symptoms. So I've got here, anxiety can cause restlessness, difficulty concentrating, and a constant feeling of worrying, which can be mistaken for ADHD symptoms.
Yeah.
You agree?
I think in females, I just know more about females from the research I've done. There are a lot of women who are initially diagnosed with anxiety, with depression, and then later in life they then get a diagnosis of ADHD.
Is it fairly common for that to happen?
It happened for me.
Is it
that
easy?
Was my lived experience was
Oh, really?
I went through, because I didn't think it was ADHD until the last 18 months that I did more research into it. Because again, I always had thought ADHD was bouncing off the walls, hyperactivity.
Okay, so prior to your diagnosis,
Yeah.
you had a conscious awareness that something was off kilter.
Yeah, I've always kind of had anxiety, spates of depression. I had like an eating disorder. And actually now looking into that, there are a lot of people who were diagnosed with all of that stuff. And then later in life, actually, it turned out that it was ADHD. So it's very common. It's not to say that people who have those things are ADHD, because they can be separate.
Correct.
But yeah, I do think that there can be a misdiagnosis for sure.
How do you feel consciously about your journey and where you are today, knowing what you know and your diagnosis?
It's a good question. I wouldn't change anything about it. I think all of my experiences have made me who I am, and I think it's made me more passionate about raising awareness of ADHD and getting people to just think a little bit deeper about things. I don't think I would have been diagnosed as ADHD in childhood. Like, if my parents had looked into it more, I don't think back then I would have been diagnosed. I think.
But there's no blame.
There's no blame anywhere.
No.
I don't think.
No.
It was, all of this came very much from me. There wasn't any professional at any point that said, have you ever considered you have ADHD? But I also feel as though, because there's that stigma attached to it, or there was, especially back then, maybe people didn't want to say, have you ever thought that you might be ADHD? And so I think now, hopefully, we're moving towards an environment where professionals feel they can say, I've been listening to you and I've seen you do this and I've seen you do this. Have you thought about this? Because, yeah, it's a long journey. It's been a long journey for me, and I'm really happy with where I am at the moment. But if I could get in a little time machine and travel back and speak to myself, I might give myself a bit of a nudge and be like, maybe have a look at this.
Sometimes you think about a situation like that, and then in hindsight, it's probably not going to make a lot of difference, because I think you've got to go, like, everybody's journey is different, you know, and whether there's a mental health issue attached to it or not, you know, there's all these other contributing factors and environments in your life. And once again, there's no rule book, there's no map, you know, there's no Google map that's going to get you from A to B, you know. And I think that's just part of life, and about learning about who you are as a human.
And I think that's a responsibility we all have as humans, is to learn about ourselves, is to take that time to sit back and go, this is who I am. This is how my brain works. And I really encourage people to just slow down and do that because it's amazing. It's fascinating.
Exactly, isn't it? We're all amazing people. The dark side of having the ADHD is so symptoms of ADHD contribute to a variety of health problems, including compulsive eating, substance abuse, anxiety, chronic stress and tension, and low self-esteem. So anybody listening, I mean, we're not putting those into a box and saying if you fit into that box, this is the problem. We're saying that there's a lot of people that have one or two of those symptoms and are completely normal functioning people. I think, as we've discussed previously, it's when you start to reflect on it may be causing a problem or an issue, like within a relationship or within a family unit or just internally, that's when you want to seek advice or talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
Especially for guys. Guys, if you're listening to this, get a mate, take them down the pub, have a chat.
Yeah.
Have a beer.
100%.
Yep. How's Tim on being manly and talking?
He's great.
Yep.
He's good. Yeah.
Good communicator.
Yes, unless the football's on, in which case, silence.
We did. We had. I think we talked for about an hour and a half after our podcast. After the mics were turned off. Fantastic guy.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Hey, once again, I really want to thank you for your time.
No.
It's been awesome broaching the subject, learning about your career, your upbringing, your diagnosis, your family, and as I said, it's been a pleasure.
No, thank you for having me on and giving me a platform to, raise awareness of all these amazing brain differences and how we can support people to be the best version of themselves.
Couldn't have said it any better. That's a wrap, Matt.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in and for your time. You know the vibe, I'm steady living until I die. It's a lewd state of mind and we showed you that. Keep it authentic and real, I hope you coming back. Hey, make sure that you subscribe, cause we got it popping all the time and it's going down. If you wanna elevate, wanna live a better life, keep it locked here. You know it's a lewd state of mind, let's go.